I look at the D&D dragons and can't help but say, couldn't they be a bit better? Like, official dragons sometimes feel painfully generic, even if mechanically they make for amazing, fantastic, very fun fights. It's just a touch hard to make them feel like real creatures within the setting. They often feel, and in my experience anyways, like they are in the world out of an obligation to the name of the game. So how do we fix this? My first instinct is almost always to rewrite lore. A good piece of lore can make dragons feel a lot better. For example, in the most recent Legend of Zelda games, that's Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom as of recording, we see dragons, but their lore is only built upon in the second one of those. So in the first game, when I first encountered the dragons, I thought, that's weird, they're kinda cool, screwed around with them for a little bit, and then moved on. It's a neat but forgettable part of the game, because why would we care about the dragons? But then we get into the second game, and in this one, the draconic origins are revealed to the players. I will be spoiling it. The process is a human eats some magic rocks, and that morphs them into a dragon that is immortal, but you lose yourself for some sort of vague sacrifice. This leads to the final boss eating one of these rocks and turning into a dragon, and to an ancient ally showing up in the final showdown to assist you. It's very cool. And it has a very powerful effect, because now I want to know, there are 3 other dragons in the game. Who were they before they became dragons? I want to know, how did some of the other monsters get dragon bone weaponry if they are immortal? And as I play, I see one, I immediately make the connection between the lore and the creature in my head, which just generally improves the feeling of a deep world. It also doesn't necessarily have to be that complex of a lore change. I made my own variant of dragons a while back and decided for an animalistic approach. How dragons in this setting worked is they were predators that would sometimes kill and eat humans. They would consume everything, including metals, and just leave no trace of whoever they killed. But since they ate the metals, this includes silver, this includes gold, when they go back to their nest, they hairball it up into a corner. This leads to, in the setting, that there is a concept called a scrap run, where the poor or the desperate people will run into a dragon's lair while they're hunting, steal as much of this scrap as they can and take it back to sell it to crafters, and it's very high quality material because the dragon's gut kind of removes all the impurities from the metal. This leaves dragons as a fairly simple encounter, but establishes their danger and reward in a fairly natural way so that they don't feel out of place within the setting, as if someone just dropped them in with no alterations. But D&D's default dragons I find much less fun. There are elemental dragons that exist because they do, and they feel like they wanted each element to have its own unique thing, but ends up kind of making them all blend together with unique traits not really being thought about a ton. But what are the fixes? Well, let me show you. Dota's Dragon Blood. This is the Netflix series, not the video game. I never played the video game. So in this one, there's a dragon called Oroth who the characters interact with. What's really entertaining about this one is characterization. It is a living, breathing being. It has personality traits. It plays pranks. It does this. It does that. And as a result, it feels like a real character, and you like them a lot, which leads up to, I think, a death. I don't remember it clearly. At the very least, a fake-out death that feels fairly meaningful. But in D&D, since they aren't handing you characters, they're handing you stat blocks, the dragons end up feeling like they don't have much going on, which can be fixed very easily on the DM level. Say, oh, this is what the dragons are like, this is what this is like, this is what this is like, you know. But it doesn't really work within just copy and paste into the game. To contrast this, let me point you to Mind Flayers for a minute, right? These monsters have a personality that just their monster, just their silhouette kind of invokes. It's cold, it's alien, it's cruel, willing to enslave, mutate, and deceive any humanoid race. You might say, well, dragons are vicious beasts, except in D&D they are also wise counselors. Or you might say they're distant, but in D&D they are also present. And you might say they're evil, but in D&D they're also good. You can't say anything definitively about dragons as a group, because they made 8 dragons and just kind of slathered them across their settings. They don't have any sort of unified traits that really stand out to me, and as a result they come off a tad bland despite being dragons. I guess the best way to explain this would be D&D dragons are like humans. Yeah, you kind of know what you're looking at, but it's hard to label the species on a wide level. So unless you start referring to individuals or individual groups, you don't have an emotional investment in the fact that they're humans. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Good night.